Hi, it's September 19th, 2011, and a funny thing happened to me on the way to City Hall this morning. I was scheduled to give my deputation to the executive committee that is considering these draconian and antipathetic cuts to our social services. There was a comedy of errors. My printer didn't work, had a spill on my bike. There was a couple of miscommunications, and then I was scheduled number 27, and the 10 people before me didn't show up, and so they skipped right ahead. And I was running up the stairs as I heard my name called by the mayor, and which is kind of like some strange thing that would happen in a dream. But I missed it, and it's probably a good thing because I was like dripping in sweat and totally out of breath. I would have looked like some sort of weird shaman, which I don't know, might have gone over well in some weird form of political theater. But anyway, I'm very happy to be home and dry. It's raining, and I've got some yam soup on the hob, and the cat's curled asleep in his chair, as Leonard Cohen says. And this is a very good place to give this deputation from anyway, because I won't be stopped. And I need to because I love you, Toronto. I love all of the people who come to these incredible shows of public force and coherence. 324 people booked their entire Monday off in order to sit with each other and speak truth to power, speak about the city that they love, speak about their incredible skill and empathy, speak about their talents and their services that they provide. This, social service workers and people who work with the elderly and people who work in daycare and library workers and everybody in this parade of angels that basically underlies my reality, for a good life in this city, who I never really see until I really participate, and it's such a great feeling. So I regret not being able to do this in person, but it also means that I can take more than the allotted 2 minutes, Councillor Mamalidi. How do you like them apples? So I'll just start, but you have to imagine the scene, right? There's fluorescent lights and lots of non-porous and uninviting gray surfaces, and lots of technology around, and foam ceiling boards, and a lot of social alienation, just kind of like built structurally into the architecture of the building, and so it's quite different. So put yourself in that mindset, and then here I come. Anyway, I love you, Toronto. My name is Matthew Remski. I'm from Cabbagetown. I'm a writer, therapist, and philosopher. It's now absolutely clear that the proposed budget austerities are not about fiscal responsibility nor rational business sense. The proposed core service savings actually amount to exactly the same amount forfeited by this administration through two regressive bribes to our darker angels. One is the property tax cut, and the other is the vehicle registration tax cut. The proposals before us show regression on two levels. One is moral, and the other is psychological. So I'll start with a moral. They display a blatant disregard for ecology and the research that it requires. They display disregard for the space of social healing, which is the public park, a disregard for the space of social evolution, which is the library. But most importantly, and here's where the psychology comes in, I would say that the proposed cuts display a thinly veiled hatred for the vulnerable of our society. The homeless, the addicts, the mentally bereft, people who are ill, people who are elderly, people who are shut in and alone. We're being hard-sold a city in which selfishness and alienation are actually cardinal virtues. We're now considering the policy ideals of bitter and depressed people who clearly believe that they are at war with a chaotic and punishing world. They do not consider it their responsibility to provide positive and hopeful inspiration, or to call on the creativity of their wards to leverage the countless acts of cooperation and empathy that unfold every day upon our streets. Mr. Mayor, the structural deficit you are charged to correct demands a structural answer, which is best accomplished by revisioning income streams to draw upon all of the dead, hoarded, manicured lawn, low-density wealth that our decades of greed, depression, and dissociation have allowed us to accumulate. It doesn't call for ideological shock doctrine answers which suppress creativity and fool at least some of us into thinking that life is some gray, mean, and ungenerous affair. But there is another vision of the city, now affirmed by 70% of those polled last week, and it speaks a very different ethos, in which citizens gauge their values by the immediate feeling in their hearts when they hear words like tree, children, farm, library, AIDS, homeless, elderly, shut in. Mr. Mayor and supporters, I'll venture a free diagnosis. Your conscious but fictional war is on costs, but your subconscious war seems to be on people, specifically those people who through their hardships show us all our own vulnerability, our own ill health, our own fragile grip on mental balance, and our own delicate world, which asks us to dig deep to transcend our private fears and heal ourselves by reaching out. To untax private property while closing homeless shelters says, don't remind me how absurd it is that I have this roof over my head and others do not. To untax private property and reduce health services at the same time says, don't remind me that I am prone to disease. To smash the Portlands project while untaxing cars says this, don't remind me how dependent I am on tiny, green, growing things and on this soil to which my very body will return. I can't say it more plainly. To enable personal, unconscious avarice at the expense of the vulnerable is to actually say, go away, suffering person. You remind me too deeply of who I am. I do not think that this is what we truly wish to say.